I'm very well, thanks.
Okay, can you please introduce us yourself?
My name is Lady Dani. I bill myself as Rebel, Urban Forager, and Crone because I'm reclaiming that title.
Okay. So, can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with FDR Park?
My relationship with FDR is mostly as a forager. I initially came here with Wild Beauties of Philly, but we only did the front part of the park. And then I discovered the meadows. And once I discovered that magical space, it was love at first sight. And it's been an ongoing love affair, but also a fight to keep her.
hmm Can you share a little bit about your discovery of the meadows?
My husband actually lived in the area when he was a kid, so many people who have lived in this area knew about the former golf course, but really discovering the meadow as it had overgrown and as so many things changed here once the golf course closed was just, it was amazing. It was amazing to see that kind of lush, verdant space in the middle of South Philadelphia.
So, what has changed now?
Go ahead.
I thought you were waiting for the
No,
flight.
no, okay, okay.
Some of the things that have changed, well, there's a lot that has changed about the Meadow area. Last Friday was the 1 year anniversary of when they came in and felled a lot of trees and then began creating this 40-foot dirt mound upon which soccer pitches are going to eventually be placed. And to see that kind of destruction from this green, lush, verdant area to big piles of dirt and just fields of grass that had just been pulled up to expose soil, it's just been heartbreaking. Also, access has been one of the big things that's changed. A lot of the trails that had been more maintained are no longer being maintained. It's almost as if they have their plan for what they want to do with the space, and now they're discouraging people from using the public space.
And how that is affecting you?
The whole situation has affected me personally.
They're having a party right on top of us. I love that noise though. Go ahead.
Um, the way that this has affected me is it's made me. I, I'm not the activist sort. I mean, but it came to a point when it comes to your door, you don't really have a choice. And I felt really protective of this space, and to see it destroyed when I know how important it's been to the community that's looking for, just especially during COVID, people really wanted a chance to get outside because that was the only thing you could do. You couldn't be with your friends, you couldn't be in inside spaces. So coming outside was a way to connect with nature and the few other people that found the space and enjoyed it. And now that's all just being destroyed. And I don't think enough people realize how much destruction is happening. And we always get the story from Parks and Recreation, well, this is just a portion of the park and you have to learn to share. You know what? They need to learn to share. They need to learn to share what nature is given, without trying to make a profit on it.
hmm And why do you think it's important to save the meadows?
I think it's important to save the meadows because this is one of Philadelphia's largest open public spaces, and the public has a right to enjoy it. I also think it's important because if they get their way with this, then it sets a precedent that they can go into any other green space that's under the auspices of Philadelphia Parks and Recreation and Fairmount Park Conservancy. Well, it's a disservancy because it's not conserving much. And I don't want to see that happen. At least it's not going to happen without, I'm up for a fight. And it's funny because some of the people from Fairmount Park that I don't know, apparently when I've been introduced to them, their response is, oh, I know you. And I think that's because I've been very vocal, especially on social media, about how I feel this destruction is impacting the community.
hmm And are there any practices that people are doing regarding saving the meadows now?
Save the Meadows as an organization has been instrumental in holding functions to bring about awareness. And we've also allied with some other groups like the Sunrise Movement here in Philadelphia, as well as UC Townhomes and other groups, even Save Chinatown and No Arenas in Chinatown, because they understand that, when they come for us, they come for all of us. And it's not just destruction of the green space, but it's also destruction of affordable housing. It's destruction of neighborhoods, and it's all in the name of, profit. And realistically, we need to start putting people ahead of profit. I mean, it's not always about the money. You can't eat money. You can't breathe money. And you'll be able to see when we go in the back how this destruction of that tree line is influencing how you can breathe back there. I think when the wildfires were happening in Canada, I had to cancel a tour that I had scheduled here twice because of the air quality. That would have been ameliorated had they left the trees there. But now that the trees are gone, now views that you didn't even have before, you used to just see rolling hills of green and trees. Now you can see the bridge and I-95 because they've all been leveled, and you can almost see the smoke belching off of 95 into the park. And when people who live in this area have already been exposed to toxins from the paint companies that were here, from the garbage facilities that are here, from the airport, this is just one more thing. It's almost like they're trying to kill us in the city. And then if you do that, then what's left? Just you make it available to rich people that have the money to afford you building this prefab house with some fabulous, accoutrements and all mod cons. And meanwhile, the people that you say that you need here, that work the first line, that are your waiters and waitresses, that are your nursing and healthcare people, they can't afford to live here. So the whole thing is just incredibly misguided.
And how do you think like your foraging practice and like tours are helping like with Save the Meadows? Like, can you talk about that?
I think my tours of the meadows help people realize that some of the plants that people want to say are invasive weeds are really just plants. And if you can appreciate what they do, if you can appreciate what they bring to the party as far as medicinal benefits or edibility, then that changes, that little click in your head changes the way that you see this plant. All of a sudden, it's no longer just a weed. It's a plant that has viable attributes and make it important. And I think that's, if people connect with that, then all of a sudden it becomes more important when you see them being destroyed and just ripped up willy-nilly.
And as you mentioned about like the park, like being shared, how do you see that in relationship with the South Asian market?
We were really happy to see that the Southeastern Asian market was given a permanent home. That's a very positive thing. But I think the way that was announced at a meeting where, quite frankly, all hell broke loose because they weren't letting people into a particular meeting that was staged at a church. Well, people who went there did not understand that that was a church. But yet when things went wrong, they wanted to blast people and say, oh, you did this on, sacred ground. Well, what about the sacred ground that is this park? And I'm really dismayed at the story that Parks and Recs keeps pushing, which is that we are making all of these improvements for the Black and brown community, because if we give you more soccer fields, then you'll have places to go so that the kids can get away from violence. If that was really the case, then you would make all of this available in their neighborhoods. So they didn't have to get on SEPTA to come down here. It would be within walking distance. So if their mom called them, they can get home quickly, all of those things. But that's not the case. I think they're really doing this because, oh, guess what? You're really close to 95. Oh, North Wilmington, Westchester, all of these suburbs that need places to play soccer tournaments. And if you build 12 fields, which means that you can do all of this in a day or two, that makes a lot more sense than actually making this available to the communities that live around here. But that's the story that they push. And unfortunately, when you live in a community that has been ignored for so long, that you've been given nothing, you've been absolutely disregarded, then people want to believe that, because it's like the one thing that you have when you have nothing else is hope. So you want to believe that this is something that is for you. But the reality is that's not how these people work. They get in, they give you a story, and then all of a sudden, oops, well, you know what? There are 35 weeks that we have available for soccer play, and most of those are taken up for tournament. I'm really sorry, you can't play here.
So what aspects have you been mostly involved in, like with saving the meadows?
I have been mostly involved in working with anybody that's willing to talk to me about it, to just impress upon them how important this space is. I've also done some other work with, I said, there are other community groups that I've liaised with. I recently went to a teach-in with Save the Meadow, Sunrise Movement, because I think climate change and what's happening is often pushed out as some white suburban mom issue. It's not thought of as something that you have to worry about if you live in the city, but it impacts all of us. And in fact, the people who are black, brown, poor, it affects even more so because you don't have access to that country club. You don't have access to these lush parks that exist in the suburbs. This is what you have. And it's really important that we all start realizing that every time that they cut down a tree and that, you don't have that filter for air quality anymore, it is, black and brown youth and people who are disenfranchised and poor that pay for that, because those are the people more likely to have asthma but can't get medical care for it. And if you don't have health care, which we seem to be incredibly against doing any kind of socialized medicine in this country, then that affects all of those people. Black and brown women have more of a risk of not only getting cancer, but asthma, but dying of it, because they don't have access to inhalers and inhalers on some level should only be used as rescue treatment unless you're taking a prolonged steroid. So if you don't have the money to get those on a monthly basis, then how are you protecting yourself? And when the wildfires come in and there's no filtration, or if it's just a really hot, humid day and the air hangs low and you can't breathe, I mean, everybody was so upset when black men have been arrested and the chokeholds have been put on and they're saying they can't breathe. Well, metaphorically, that's happening to all of us now, because as every tree is cut, every time that a developer comes in and the city is so willing to give them the rights to develop something like Cobb's Creek, they're giving them the rights to develop this into a golf club. And it was, I think, $1 for 70-year lease. I mean, come on. This is like somebody is getting paid off of this. And sometimes, like I said, it's just not about money. It should be about protecting your citizens. And how stupid are we that we just keep falling for the stories and keep voting for the same people time after time, because they're not doing anything different. They're not, half of these people won't even listen to us when we've asked them at meetings, like, what are you doing? What is your, green agenda? They don't even want to discuss it.
Do you have like any concerns in addition to the one like you mentioned about like how the development and like the construction is unfolding at the park?
One of my biggest concerns, not only in this park, but in all of the parks that fall under auspices of Philadelphia Parks and Recreation, is their failure to adhere to the HOPS law. The HOPS law was originally passed to provide healthy outdoor spaces and to prevent the use of things like glyphosates, which are in Roundup, on plants. But the city continues not to enforce this, especially under the Kinney administration, so they keep using this. And you only have to spend any warm afternoon to see the guys out with their spraying wands going around these trees. And half of these weeds are just as easy. Some of them don't even have deep tap roots. They could pull them out by hand. But no, that's a little bit harder, so they don't want to do that. They would just rather spray it. And all of that goes into our water system. All of that, I have friends that have dogs that they walk through here. It affects the dogs. And a lot of times they put in, even with pest control, because I do understand with the mosquito issue, you don't want things like Zika to flare up in this country. But when you go out and you see the blue dye that they put in the sprays, tainting all the plants, it's just the exposure level and they just don't seem to care. It's like, okay, we're killing these plants, but they don't care about the people that are still walking in this area and bringing that home from themselves, on their pets, on their children.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. I don't understand why you would put your citizens at risk, but apparently it's not about us anymore.
So, what are the challenges that you're facing in terms of like organizing like a community and like awareness around like saving the meadows?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges in trying to organize is some things that are done raise kind of awareness. I mean, I do like the fact that they have times when kids can come in and, connect with nature and draw things, and that's all well and good. But what we need is a strong agenda, and what we need is some meetings with people that are really willing to listen, not just kind of sit there, and then do nothing about it. We saw that with Parks and Rec. They had no real intention of listening to us or changing what their plan. It was kind of like that movie, The Program. This is the program. We're sticking to the program. It doesn't matter what you think. It's all about the program. And they really didn't listen to our concerns. And the constant, they want to play victim. So when we say this is what we're looking for an agreement that you won't mess with the meadows. We're looking for, then they're, oh, no, you can't do that. It's a water issue. We're making this into a wetlands. You don't have to make into a wetlands what is already a wetland. That's number one. Number two, with the floodgate issue, if you were so concerned about the tidal gates, then why were they removed about a month and a half ago with nothing in place to stop it? So the water started flowing into the lakes and things here. So there was a cross-contamination between freshwater and saltwater, and nobody seemed to care. And when the back around Hollander Creek and things were overflowing their bases, nobody seemed to care about that. But then when you mention all of this, oh, well, you're just not understanding the picture. And you have to learn to share the park. It's not just about you and the meadows. Well, excuse me, who got the opportunity to say anything about North America's biggest swing set that they built at the front here? I mean, seriously? You're going to kill all of this to build a man-made swing set? And the stupidity of the whole thing is, if you really wanted to make some money off of this, you could have left all of this and had a marketing team come at it like, this is, a really great urban meadow. We've allowed this to rewild. This is what rewilding can look like. And trust me, all of these mayors go to these mayoral meetings across the U.S. where mayors talk to each other. And Kenny could have just as easily said, look what we're doing in Philadelphia. We are saving our green spaces. We're making them more accessible to the community. And you can do this too. But that wasn't done. They already had a plan. We're not changing course on this plan. And we really don't care what you think about the plan.
Yeah. And how do you see that kind of like the program or like the agenda going along with the South Asian market and the skate park? Like as people occupying the space as well.
I think that right now, the way that they're positioning this with the skate park and the Southeast Asian market, they will stay only because it's something that they feel at some point they can make more money off of. I have seen, in fact, for years, Southeast Asian market was Philly's best hidden secret. So many people who came to it knew about it. We tell friends, but it wasn't something that was widely promoted. Once they got their permanent space, it became widely promoted. Once they got their permanent space, I noticed the people with their little headphones and their like little personal speakers. Oh, here's a tour of the Southeast, and that is all covered under Parks and Recreation, because that's an event that they do that, guess what, they make a couple of bucks on. So it's all, if they can make money off of it, then they're willing to say, okay, we'll keep that. Just like, the swing set, just like the little pop-up kids play sets that they put there. If they think that there's a draw and they can, do a little, it's kind of like in Louisiana, it's lanyap. It's just a little thing that we throw out there just to say, to keep you sweet. And that's the kind of stuff that they've done that. The rest of it, the destruction that they're doing, even the plan that they have for their Christmas extravaganza, Tinseltown, I don't think that that serves really the park, because the extra parking, the fact that much of the park will be blocked off from the time that they do this from mid-November until January, the fact that they're going to put in over 1 million lights, which is really going to freak the birds out, because all of a sudden they're expecting twilight to come down, and instead you've got 1 million twinkle lights. And this is for months on end. This is not going to mess up with their flight patterns. Come on.
So how do you see the future of the meadows?
I'm old enough to know that hope really is the one thing that you have left. And as my mother used to say, it's a long road that doesn't have a turn in it. And I really hope and pray that at some point somebody will come in. And I would like to think that would be Sherelle Parker. I'm not sure. When you hang out with the same people again and again and again, you start to develop that same mindset that those other people had. So I'm not sure whether she will make a big change, but I would like to think that, just stop. Just stop for a minute. Just stop and listen to the community. Stop and talk to the people. Stop to see, not the people that, are paid by politicians to show up at these meetings and say, oh no, my football team really needs, not those people. The people who actually use the park all the time. The people who are out here picnicking on the weekends. The people who are walking through the back with their kids and the dogs. Ask them what they think about that. And then finally, I think just to really take a look at some of the practices that are already happening as part of their plan. When they built this 40-foot soil mound, they keep saying that this is like soil that's coming from some of the excavations and things that they're doing. But I had a friend that drove behind a truck and saw it coming from the airport here. Now, they keep saying they're testing soil. Really? Are they really? Are they really being upfront with how the soil is being moved, where it's coming from? Because a lot of this area, when you think about like the old paint companies that were around, even at the point when they were doing construction for SEPTA and putting old pieces and things into the ground as, barriers and dirt and buffers and all, what is in the soil mound? And then how much of that gets released every time that they use the soil mound? So if they're just doing that to raise the land, every time they scoop out the dirt to try and raise the land, are we being exposed to more toxins coming from that? I mean, there are just so many questions that need to be answered. And I think if we stop and just really take a hard look at the practices that are happening, whether it really is following health and safety guidelines, because whatever is done to this, I mean, let's face it, a lot of this was built on floodplains. So in 100 years, it may all be underwater. Who knows, especially with global warming. But while it's here, I think people should have access to it. And I don't think that we should be trying to nickel and dime everybody that visits, from, the fee that they want you to pay to rent a picnic table to fees that they want, people to do any kind of filming or photography or anything. It's a public park. If you're not bothering anybody and you're just enjoying the park, I don't understand why money has to be exchanged for that. Surely there's enough in your city budget to cover just basic upkeep, and some of that's just not even being done. So I would just take a really serious hard look at everything that's going on, and parks and recreation as a whole. And Fairmount Park Conservancy, which is supposed to be a non-profit wing, should also be seriously looked at. Some of the things that they're doing are great, but there are so many things that are just misguided at the very least.
Are there any thoughts that you would like to share?
Yeah. When it comes to the thoughts I would like to share, no, when it really comes to parks, especially in urban spaces, I really think that we need to appreciate them more. The city has a really weird habit of saying, oh, you built this little community garden, how sweet. But when it comes to larger spaces, they don't take care of them. And when it comes to these spaces and community gardens that people have worked hard to build, it's really annoying when the city then wants to put them up for sheriff's sale instead of working with those communities and the land bank to really preserve those for the communities that have worked so hard on them. I had the privilege of working with We good?
Yeah,
All right. I had the privilege of working with Painted Bride and a number of community gardens in the city, and we did it as the Resistance Garden movement. And that's what it's about. It's about refusing to go under. It's about making green space that's usable for us and our communities and the city as a wider unit. And we really need to preserve these because there are studies that have been done that show how it positively affects mental health by just having access to nature. I think it only takes 20 minutes that the people who actually walk in nature, spend time in it, note a marked reduction in their stress levels, in their anger. If you're talking about the violence in Philadelphia, especially gun violence, the fact that you're ripping up every green space doesn't exactly show that you really care about that, because if you did, instead of saying stupid things that I've heard from the city like, oh, having trees, people could hide drugs or guns there. Well, you know what? Having trees means that people have shade. It's cooler. And when you're physically cooler, your tempers are also cooler. So like, let's, instead of making, and stop making an equivocation that like old growth trees are the same as new trees, because Parks and Recreation is ripping down large old growth trees, and when you complain about it, oh, we gave you some new saplings, and it's like, new saplings are not going to give you the shade, they're not going to retain the water, they're not going to hold ground that old trees do. So stopping doing that would be a really good thing.